So in this section, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at how we can take all the things that we modeled for the proxy and we're going to push it into UE4. So you can see we've got this file that I've prepared for you, and it's called O4 Proxy Cannon Ground Fern Grass. So this is pretty simple. It's just got the ground and the cannon and the plants, what we've been kind of looking at. Now you can use the models that you've modeled following along with this and kind of following the same kind of template, or you can just use the pieces that you see here. So I'm going to export these out separately. So I'm going to be able to select this group called Cannon. I'm going to go say File, Export Selection, and we'll do the option box, and we'll change this to a file type of FBX Export. So we'll export selection, and if we take a look at the export options, it should open this up for us. And we should be able to take a look here and navigate to maybe our workspace root is. I'm going to go to learning content. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm just going to call this FBX, like this. And so I usually store all the FBX files that I have in a folder kind of like that. You can see here's the options that I'm going to set for exporting out: smoothing groups, tangents and binormals, smooth mesh. You could tell it to triangulate if you want, but I usually don't do that. Now if you're going to do anything that's got a skeleton on here, you want to have an animation, and you can tell it to do deform models like that. We don't really have anything like that, so you don't really have to worry about anything like that, but I'm just going to go ahead and just turn it on anyways. And I'll call this Cannon, let's say all, like that. And I'll say export selection. Let's just go ahead and do the ground. Say file export selection and do the option box again. Say, or just let's do export selection, and we can call this ground underscore all, and we'll do plants, and we'll say file export selection, and we'll do plants, do all for that. Okay. And let's go hop on over to UE4. So I've got this loaded up here. We're going to go to what we saw for making a third-person project before. So I'll just double-click this and load this up. We could either do, I've got this class third-person or this third-person project. Either one, I think it'll be fine, depending on what you've kind of made and what you've called it. That's going to be up to you, whatever you go ahead and create for that. And so here we are in UE4. I've just trimmed the video a little bit to kind of save some time while I was loading up the project. And what I would like to do is just go over in here, and if you don't see this, you can just click this little button here, and that will open up. It's kind of like in Maya, the outliner, so you see all the different content that you've got here. And so we could call this, we can make a new folder, just right click in there and say new folder, and we could call this Proxy if you wanted. And within there, you can make a new folder, and you could call this Cannon, like that. We can make a new folder, right click and say new folder, and we could call this plants, and right click and say new folder and say ground, like that. Okay. So let's import the Cannon in. Let's just double click and go into that folder, and then we can right click and say import to game proxy Cannon, that area. And then we'll just have to navigate to where the content sits for us. So I think I can just go and kind of navigate to this. I'm just going to go open up a file location. So I know within here I'm going to go to learning content and then go to that FBX folder that you've created. And then I'm going to go create the Cannon. I'm going to hit open for this. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about some of these options for the FBX as you import it in. So let's click this little arrow open, and this gives us more options. So when we exported, we had a bunch of different pieces that were exported out together, and we don't want them to come in as separate objects, so we're going to turn on this combined meshes. Now if this is off, it would make a bunch of different models for all the different pieces. You might want that functionality, but I don't, so I'm going to tell it to combine the meshes together. And then also whenever it pulls everything in, I do not want it to import textures, and I don't want it to create materials for this. So I think we're going to be okay for everything on there. So I'm just going to hit import. Well, we can tell it to create new materials, or Do not create materials. I'm going to say do not create materials. So let's hit import all like this, and then this should give us the cannon. And we'll take a look at this. Let's double click on it and open up in the static mesh viewer. Now, one thing that you can see that we've got kind of an issue going on here is this thing is drawing incorrectly. If you remember, we gave this a negative scale in the Z on there, so I didn't know if that was going to cause a problem or not, but it is. So let's go ahead and just fix that. Let's go back, hop on back over to Maya like this, and let's take a look at the thing that we have in the cannon for the side, the right side. So what we need to do is go modify freeze transformations, and then let's just delete the history, Alt-Shift-D for that. And then we can make sure everything's working for establishing kind of a pipeline between moving back and forth between Maya and UE4. So let's just select that cannon again. I'm going to save this file. Let's just say File, Export Selection, and we're going to overwrite the cannon. So export that. Now let's hop back over to UE4. And what we can do is re-import this base mesh, just like this. Now, if you didn't want to do it there, you could right click on here and you can say re-import, or you can say re-import with a new file. So let's just re-import and it'll know where that's at on the location. Now, if you wanted to re-import it from a different place or something, that's where you do this re-import with new file. So I'm going to double click on this, and you can see this should, if I tap F, it's going to fix those issues that we had with things not drawing correctly. So I can go ahead and save that real quick like that. And then let's go to the ground. Let's go right click and import, and we'll import the ground. And it should hold all the options that we have for combining the meshes and everything that we did for the materials and stuff. So let's just go ahead and do that. So double click on that and we can see the ground. Hit save for that. And then the last part, do plants. So we'll do an import and we'll do plants, and we'll open that up and import. Double click on it and save that. Now, the other thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to just right click and say new folder, and I'm going to call this materials. Like that. I'm going to go into here and I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new material. So we're just going to make a proxy material. I'm going to call this m_proxy_default like this. Okay. So within here, let's just double click on this, and this will allow us to make a new material, and we can right click. Actually, we'll just hold down 3 and then click, and then this will become something that feeds into our base color, and we can right click on there and say convert to parameter. I'm going to show you why we're going to convert to a parameter in just a little bit. We're going to make some nodes, and we're going to make it to where we're going to right click on there and just say convert to parameter, and we're going to make these nodes to where we can interactively change the values on these things with a material instance, and that just makes it really easy to tune this stuff in real time. So let's just call this base color like this, and let's just double click on there, and I'm going to raise the value up to be like something like 0.5 like that. Okay, and then we can hold down 1 and do a scalar value, and we can right click in there and say convert to parameter, and I'll call this metallic like that. I'm going to give it a value of 0. Just hold that default value. I'm going to copy and paste that, push this into specular, just change the name to specular like that, and let's just copy and paste that, and then we'll put that into roughness and like this, and we'll give this default value, let's just do like 0.5 for that, and I think that should be pretty good. Let's go ahead and save that, and once that's saved, we're going to make a material instance of it, and you'll see what's going to happen here real quick. So let's take this, right click and say create material instance, and we can go ahead and save it real quick, double click it, and it'll open up in a new tab. So you can see it's going to make a these things that we can check, and everything that we made into parameters will now be these things that we can interactively change. So if I want to make it red or something like that, you can do that. I'm going to take the saturation of that, take this down here like this. If you hold down L, you can move around the light source around here on that. And if I want to take the roughness and drop that down a little bit, we can do something like this going down to like 0 within here. I can take the specular, that's why this is not working. Let's put the specular value to 1. So now you can see the roughness. If we drop it down really low, close to 0, it's like glass, or really shiny glass. And if we take this up to almost 1, it kind of makes this thing more dull. Now if you crank the metallic up to like 1, it becomes like a chrome sphere. If you've got the roughness down to 0, something like that. So that's how we can kind of control some of this stuff. I'm going to take this metallic value, maybe make it something like this, and maybe make this a little bit more dull. Hit save for that. And here's how we can take this to these different pieces. So if we double click them and load them up, the ground, double click it, load that up, and the plants, double click that and load them up as well. And when we go to this material and select this material instance, we can assign it by clicking this little arrow here. So we've got the ground, I'll assign it here, and we got the cannon, and I'll assign that there. Let's just save these like this. And what I can do now is take the ground and let's just throw it in here. Let's just set this to 0, 0, 0 for the world location, and we'll take the cannon, we'll throw that in there, and then let's just set this to 0, 0, 0, and let's take the plants, throw them in there, and we'll set this to 0, 0, 0 as well. And then it should show up over here, right? So we've got the ground, we've got the plants, and we've got the cannon. And now it's possible that you can throw these all in kind of a group. Cannon, proxy, like this. And we could take this whole group and kind of move it up within here. I'm just going to tap F, and I'm going to move this thing round in through here and see where we can drop this. I think that's going to be pretty good. I'm going to rotate it. So just like Maya, the W, E, and R is going to give you this change in manipulator. You can also hit the space bar and you can cycle between these guys. So I'm just going to rotate this 90 degrees like this. I'm going to tap G to turn off the some of the icons and stuff like that for the editor, so we can just see it in this game mode. So again, if we select this this thing here, select the whole group, and we move it down in Z. Let's just do 135 and see what that does. Yeah, so that sits us like right down on the ground plane. And what we can do is just hit play, and we can use WASD to kind of move around, and we can kind of take a look at everything. And I think that looks pretty cool. And so this is going to show us, this is the size of the cannon, this is everything that we kind of have and everything that we've modeled inside of here. If you want to hit F11, you can hit F11 and you can see this in full screen mode. So it might be better, I'm going to hit escape and hit F11 to go here. And let's just select this cannon proxy, tap G to see our different manipulators. I'm going to hit the space bar. I'm going to go back to this cannon proxy. Actually, it just had everything selected. So you can right click on here, and I think we can select all descendants or immediate children. And it'll select everything for us. And we can move this thing over. And if we want to make copies of this, if we hold down, let's just hold down Alt. Let's just hold down Alt as we drag out. We can drag out multiple copies of this thing like that. Okay, now I'm going to hit F11 and then go back into here, and then let's see, if we do Alt P, we can play while it's in full screen mode, kind of like that. And now we can kind of just run around, and we can kind of check and see how everything's looking as far as scale goes. One thing I can see is with this material, you can see we need to make our faces, that material, double-sided, so you see how we can't see the backside of these ferns and things like that. Let's just go ahead and fix that. We'll hit escape, hit F11. Let's just go back into our material and double click on the parent material and just click anywhere off of here, and this will give us like all the options for the material over in this area. And we need to set it to two-sided like this and hit save. And once we do that, we're good to go. Now we can also take a little bit of a look at what the material instance looks like in the world. So let's close this down, double click our material instance, and here's what I was talking about. So now we take a look at this thing. Everything looks a little bit too shiny, and maybe we can up the gray value of this a little bit like that. Hit OK. We can take the metallic value down to 0, and when we do that, maybe we want to make it a little bit more gray. And I'll hit OK. Just trying to dismiss that little thing there. And then the roughness, we could pull that up a little bit and kind of make it a little bit more of a matte material. Just going to hit save for that. Now it is telling me lighting needs to be rebuilt. I really didn't worry about the UVs on this thing at all, so that could be an issue, but we're going to we'll take a look. We'll try to build this. The other thing that we could do is take all these pieces and make them movable, and make the ground floor movable, and make the plants movable as well. I'm just going to see if doing that will remove any of this lighting information that we got going on here. It might have some problems with these ground pieces because they're sitting directly on top of the floor, and that could cause issues. But we're going to just go ahead and say build. I'm going to put the lighting quality. I'll put it on production. Actually, that takes a little bit longer, so we'll do like medium. Say build lighting only, and see what kind of results that we get after just building some quick lighting. So it'll go through and it loads up, and you can see it's going to take just a little bit of time to build the lighting for things. And while it's building lighting, I could just tell you basically what's going on is we need to have everything should have some unique UVs for it whenever you go to build the lighting for this. Otherwise you could get some really kind of weird dark kind of shading on everything. So it does feel to me like maybe what's going on here is that all this needs to be raised up, and we could do like 140, yeah, something like that. And I think that's helping making things look a little bit better for some of this odd stuff that we had going on there. So let's just go ahead and save this. We'll have play and hit F11. We can kind of move around like this and take a look at our Canon within UE4. The other thing that we could do, we could hit F11. We could go and say File, New Level, and we could make a default level. This one's got like a sky dome in there, and it's got this little piece of geometry. So we could take this and delete that out. We could go to our Canon, drag it in, go to the ground, drag it in, and go to the plants, drag those in, and we could hold on Control and select everything, and then we could put this to 0, 0, 0 like that. And that should get us where we're right here with everything. Now there's already like some lighting already established within here, so if you wanted to like take this, the Canon, the ground, and the plants and group them together again, let's not do that. Let's do a group here. Let's just call this Canon Proxy like that. And if we want to rotate these, tap the spacebar, rotate this 180 degrees like this, and then we could put it on the move tool, hold down Alt and click and drag out, and we can drag a copy here for this. I'm going to drag a copy like this. Let's just see here real quick. So I'm going to drag out one more copy. We'll do it kind of like that. Put a little bit of space in between everything. And if we hold down Control and Alt, we can select multiple things. I don't want the sky sphere, so just make sure you don't select that. You see I've just got these 3 pieces selected. And I'll move this, I'll hold down Alt, and then click and drag out. And then I will hold down Control and add selection to these guys, and hold down Alt, and then click and drag out. And then I'm going to select this, hold down Control, add the ground, add this, select this here, and make sure I'm selecting the grass. There we go. And I'll hold down Alt and I'll drag out one copy of these guys here like that. Now the player start, where the player starts at is this thing here, so I'll just move this just a little bit. And that should have our player start right in this location. Maybe just raise it up just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and play the game. And our guy should drop right here in the middle of everything. And we can kind of walk around in this area and take a look at all the different cannons that we've got. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to hit F11 and escape out of here. And if you wanted to rebuild the lighting, you could... let's just hit escape on this. We could go to lighting quality and do production and just build the lighting real quick. It'll at least get rid of this warning that you see up in here for lighting needs to be rebuilt. Let's just close this down here. And it might take just a little bit of time to rebuild some of that for the lighting. And once that's done, we'll just do one last check on everything, and we should be able to wrap up everything for this scene. And you could save this as a new scene. So when the lighting's done, we could make a new folder, and you could call this maps if you want. And I think while we're waiting on that, we could actually do that. So we can go to content, right click, make a new folder, and just call this maps. And if you want to save in here, you can say file, save current as, and then you can go to your maps folder and you can call this whatever you want to call this, like Canon class project, like that, and save it. Okay, and it's generating the lighting and completing that, and it's giving just these different warnings about lighting. So this is what I was telling you about. If you built the lighting and you get this black kind of gunk on here, we need to build some better UVs on there, which is fine. But see, it's all set to static, but if you set all these pieces to movable, it's just going to make all the lighting actually dynamic on all these pieces. And sometimes you might have to just move things to get the lighting to kind of like get off of those things. So I think everything should be good there now at this point, and we can move around. But this is going to be a little bit, the lighting is going to be a bit more expensive just because everything's being dynamically generated for that. But we should have base materials on there. You can kind of walk around a little bit. You can kind of see what's going on. And if we hit F11, let's just hit escape and get out of here. And we'll just save our level. And then that should conclude everything that you need for this beginning section, where you can at least get things into the engine, you're checking it out, you've got things laid out, and kind of run around just a little bit and check out the quality of the sizing and the quality of the modeling that you're doing.